Hello and welcome to my knitting podcast. I'm Hannah and this is episode number 5. I have been trying to get on a schedule of posting about every 2 weeks-ish, just because I feel like that is about the time period that I've gotten enough done that I have quite a bit of new stuff to share. So that is where we're coming in today. Now, I don't have any finished objects to share. I have a lot of new projects though. I have kind of started to learn about myself that I go through like 4-month, 3-month cycles in my knitting process where I'll spend a few months getting really excited about being creative and starting a whole bunch of new projects and having stuff on so many different needles, and I'll have half a dozen big things going at once. And then after a few months, I get really tired of having so many different projects going and having really no finished objects to show, and I'll just be determined to finish all of them. And I'll be like, I'm gonna get all my needles clear and all my current projects done. And I really think I just came out of one of those cycles kind of through fall and Christmas time. I was really determined to get a couple different pieces done just because that's prime time for seasonal pieces during fall and the holidays. So I was really determined to get some things done. And then coming into, the end of the month, I had Christmas projects I was trying to obviously get done by Christmas, and all that gift knitting really takes precedence because it has a time limit on it. And then once we get into January, it's like, what do I do now? Because I have so few projects started and I have really trained myself to not start new things. So I feel like I have to restart my creative thought process to get some more projects going. Well, we have gotten to that point. Apparently first week of February is me going full force into new projects. So I don't have any completed items to talk about today, but I've got many work in progress items. The first one that I want to talk about is one that I talked about in the last video. It's my candy stripe sweater, or so I'm calling it. If you're new here, this is a 1/4 zip sweater that I'm making. I gathered inspiration from this picture that I saw on Pinterest a while ago, and I just love it. And I clicked on it and it's like a $500 or $600 sweater. So I decided this is one instance I could actually make it for cheaper. So that is what I've been kind of trying to recreate. I'm definitely making my own and doing more brighter colors because how could I not, right? So last episode, that's been more than a week ago, I had just split for sleeves. So it's really, I haven't blocked it, so it's very awkward to try and show you. So I had just split for sleeves. This is like the side view essentially. This is where I split for sleeves. I had just about gotten to right here last week, and I haven't got a ton done on it. But if you look at the back here, I have definitely progressed to a decent extent. I thought, the back side is something that's not going to be super visible all the time. So if I do some larger print, that might be kind of fun. It's a good way to kind of test that out on the back. And I really do love these stripes that I did. Both of the colorwork ones are out of this alternate stitch dictionary. I got this for Christmas and I've been really excited to be using some new styles and patterns out of it. I don't know if I could find pictures of the ones that I used. Oh, here, no, I did. There's the one I did, right? Yes. That was the hardest. I kind of built my confidence up with this blue and green one, which I love. I think it's so cute. It reminds me of Barbies that I had as a kid. It's very late 90s, early 2000s print. And this was really easy. The repeat is super easy. The furthest run of stitches that you have to carry yarn behind is 4, so it's really easy. And then I thought, okay, I could get more challenging and do a harder one. And this one tested me. This is half the reason that I haven't got as much done on this project as I did in the last episode, just because I needed to put this project down for a little bit after this one. It was definitely more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So a couple of reasons why. First off, it has a 9-stitch length. I don't know, there's probably a better word for that, but we're having to catch your floats in the back. And as you can see, especially in that very first row, that kind of more peachy, creamy colored one, I was really struggling with my tension, so that first row looks a little rough. I did improve though, because I think the rest of it looks okay. But another issue, if you look closely here, you can tell the swirls flip back and forth, like they change directions, which was so confusing. I cannot tell you how many times I had to stop, figure out where I was in the pattern, look back at my chart, look back at the pattern. I mean, I probably spent, I don't even know, 3 hours on this stripe, and it's only like 8 rows, so it was rough. This is also the part of the sweater that I decided I'm not going to try and match the front to the back. I am really trying to make this kind of a scrappy looking sweater, but also like obviously very bright color and fun. I've already finished at least one mini skein in this, so I'm just using it as a way to finish stuff up, so I'm not going to worry about matching the front and the back, and honestly I'm probably going to make the sleeves different too, just so I can feel free to finish up anything I already have started. But overall, I'm really liking how it is looking. I just haven't worked on it for a little bit. I'm just about to the point of doing some neckline shaping in the back and then casting off like at the shoulder. So I'll come back and then pick up the front and go from there and then seam those together, which the front's going to be kind of weird just because like there's that weird neckline shaping that I am going to try and kind of do. It might be a little challenging, but that is the plan with that going forward. I mentioned in the last episode that I was worried about running out of my white yarn. I am still worried about running out of my white yarn. I've officially started my second skein. I'm not too far into it, but I have a lot left. So my plan kind of is, I know I'll have plenty to finish the body, and once I'm finished with that, I might kind of reevaluate and decide to maybe put my stripes closer together on my arms, because I have plenty of the colorful yarn. It's just this white yarn that I'm probably going to run out of. The issue is I really want the cuffs to still be white to kind of match the rest of it, because like the neckline's going to be white, the bottom of the sweater is all white. So I think that needs to be cohesive. I just need to kind of figure out how I can plan to make sure it's going to match and be the same amount. But that's where I'm at with that. I'm really, really loving it, and I think it's going to be fun. I'm hoping I can still get it done kind of in the springtime, because it's DK weight, so it's not super heavy. So I think it's something that I could wear when it's like, I don't know, kind of that transition between winter and spring and summer time period that would still be really comfy. So the next project that I want to talk about is one that I did mention in the last video as one that was kind of a future plan, and I am still just kind of ironing out my plans with it. So it is using this 100% alpaca yarn held with this Surrey alpaca. It's 25 or 30% silk. And then I was a little worried about stretchage. I was worried about it stretching. And so I was kind of trying to think like, what other yarns do I have that I could maybe hold with it to keep it from stretching? Or what solutions do I have here? Well, I was going through my closet and I found a sweater that I had gotten at a thrift store, and it only cost $2. It's a 100% cashmere sweater, and I bought it, but this thrift store unfortunately didn't have a place to try clothes on, and so I didn't try it on, and it's a size large. I usually wear like a medium to large in tops and sweaters anyways, so I was like, it's gonna fit, I'll be fine. And it was awful. I'll put a picture of it here. I put a picture of it just laying on the floor because I feel like you can kind of tell why it's weird. First off, the sleeves were tiny. It was kind of like a raglan construction, and the like section where it's sewn together here on kind of coming out of the armpit, it was so tight. It hurt to wear. I don't understand how that's counted as a size large. It's like a Kohl's brand, the Apartment 9 brand. So that was very strange to me. And then it's got like this very oversized kind of cowl neckline, just really awkward and weird. So I was like, okay, well, there's no way I'm wearing this, even though it is cashmere and it was really, really soft. And I was thinking, you know, could I like take it apart and refashion it or make it into something else? And I thought I could take it like all the way apart, like I could unravel it, because I've seen people do that. It was just like a very fine yarn, so I was a little nervous about how possible that may or may not be. But I started taking it apart and I realized about midway through that I had been cutting through the wrong portion. I was on the seam, but what looked like the seam ended up being part of the body. The seam was almost like hidden because it was like curled over on itself. It's really hard to explain without being able to show you. Essentially, I only ended up with one piece of the sweater that wasn't like cut through on the end of every row, and that was that giant neckline, which I spent about 6 hours unraveling because it's a super fine yarn and it was moderately fragile. It is this right here, and I'm gonna show you in a second. I have a swatch made of all three of these being held together and it just ripped off of it. So that's how fragile it is. That's okay. Well, there's a perfect demonstration. You can see it's very fine yarn. Because it's 100% cashmere though, I was able to, and this is just delicious, do some spit splicing, and I was still having a lot of issues with it breaking, and so I did a lot of spit splicing. I mean, I just had so many little pieces of cashmere hair in my mouth by the end of the night. It was exhausting. I can't believe that just happened. So I've been using those three together and knitting up a swatch. Like I mentioned in the last episode, I want this to be kind of an intricate cable knit sweater. I've done cables on a really small scale and I just kind of want to challenge myself to go beyond that. So I have been knitting a swatch. Look, you can see where it just broke off. I just can't believe that happened. So I have been using my Japanese knit stitch Bible that I talked about. That is something else I also got for Christmas, and I have been specifically doing this pattern right here, this gray one, because I wanted to go more for cable knit than lace stitch. There's a lot of lace stitches in this book and they're really pretty. I just want a sweater that I don't have to worry about wearing something under. I don't want to be able to see through it at all, and so I wanted it to be like a really solid pattern. Well, that's what I started out doing. And I got a few inches and kind of decided immediately I wanted to change it a little bit, which is fine. That's what a swatch is for. So it's just gonna look weird. So this is what I got to so far. I know it looks strange. I got to literally right here. You can probably see there's like a break right here. So I realized that in the center of this very large open cable, it had lace stitches in there. It's just kind of hard to see because it's a dark yarn in the picture. And if you can already kind of see in the section that I was trying to actually follow the pattern, there's already little gaps forming, which is like the point of that lace stitch that they were using in that. And it's really pretty. I just don't want a sweater that you can see through in places. And so I switched right there and I just changed to a seed stitch and I really like it. I think it's a nice little just classic texture that looks really nice in there. So if you just ignore that part, that's what it'll look like. And then the other thing that I changed, I don't know what the name is for this stitch. It's this guy. It's not a cable because it never twists, you know, it's just like going back and forth essentially. And I was having a lot of issues with it. First off, it was really hard to read, like the cable knit charts are already kind of challenging because it's a lot of really tiny lines and things. But with these, it's literally just the difference of like the slant direction of one line within one box. You know, usually the cable knits are like stretched across a few boxes, so it's a lot easier to see. And I just kept accidentally getting them mixed up or accidentally reading the wrong row. And so like in this portion, I knit the same row twice in a row. You can see right there, I didn't create the right shape that I was supposed to. I was just having difficulty with that. Not to mention, and I don't really know why this was happening, if you look on the one side of that, the tension all over here is all messed up. And I don't really know why, because if you look at like everything else, my tension's fine except for these. Like it just looks all wonky just on the one side, and it didn't matter. Like I was trying to hold it tighter the longer I went, and it just did not ever improve. And if you look at like that cable's fine, but this one's all weird on the side. So I just kind of decided I'm not even gonna put that in the sweater because I don't want a stitch pattern that just kind of looks ugly and unkempt because it looks like my tension's all messed up. So if you know why it's like that on that stitch specifically, let me know, because I really don't know how to fix it. So I also switched that out for this pattern that I found in a different chart in there altogether. It's essentially just one stitch that's always like knit in the back loop, and then you're doing every other knit and purl, and then one stitch that's always knit in the back loop. So it's sort of like a little rib stitch. It just pops out a little bit more, and I think it looks really nice. And then this is the only one I kept the same. So if you look just about from here up exactly, this right there, that's what I'm planning on doing, and I'm really liking it. So thus far, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm gonna knit probably about 6 more inches. I'm gonna put just a lifeline in there, and I am gonna wash it, wet block it, just to kind of get an idea for how much this alpaca is gonna stretch, or try to get an idea. I'm using a pretty small needle. I would say that this is probably, with all of my strands, it's hard to gauge when one of them ripped off, like a bulky fingering, somewhere in between like a fingering and a DK, and I'm using a size 3 needle. I started out with, I think, a 5, and I just thought, you know, this is kind of how I want the sweater to end up feeling, and it's probably going to separate a lot. So I've got a pretty tight knit texture right now, but I think that might work out with stretching issues. So that is how far I've gotten on that. I'm really loving it. I can't describe how soft this feels. I love Surrey alpaca. I love regular alpaca. I love cashmere, even if it just randomly breaks sometimes. I'm gonna use that yarn. The rest of the projects that I have are all totally off the cuff and things that I haven't talked about yet. So all brand new. When I was working on my candy stripe sweater, I kind of hit that wall of like, I don't want to work on this anymore. I just need to take a break from it. And I was also getting like a little bit tired of having such a fine weight of a project. It is DK weight, but I'm using, I think, a size 4 needle. So it's just going kind of slow. I don't know. And also because I was getting tired of knitting all that color work. So I decided I would take a break with a different project that I've had on my roster for a long time, because I've been trying to not buy new yarn. I've actually been trying to get through some of the projects that I've had in the back of my mind. The first of which actually is based off of a project that is in one of the other books that I got for Christmas. I'm really making use of these. I am currently making the Honey Cardigan by Kutova Kika, or Veronica Lindberg, and I'm really excited about it. I love patterns. I love her patterns. I love looking at patterns, but I also feel so limited by patterns because I felt like as soon as I got this book, I was like, oh gosh, I have to go buy a whole bunch of yarn to match what is being used in these patterns. But I think when you give yourself some time to think about it, you can come up with different ideas of what you could use out of your own stash. And that is exactly what I did. I have a yarn that I bought a long time ago, probably at least 2 years ago, that I got from Hobbii. It is their Tweed Delight yarn. It is 85% wool, 10% acrylic, and 5% viscose. So it's mostly wool yarn. It's this really pretty tweed, variegated kind of, it's showing up a little bit more pale on screen, but it's a little bit more like kind of peachy pink than this. But I felt like this is just something that, you know, I have a lot of clothes that are this peachy pink. I have a lot of clothes that this would complement, and having all those little bits of color in there will help it match a myriad of things. So I bought this a long time ago with the intention of eventually making it into a cardigan, and I really had just been putting it off because I had never made a cardigan before, and I was kind of nervous about just jumping into that one. So I have a cardigan pattern, and I am using that. And I've talked about before, you know, I don't use patterns a lot, but I will say one really nice thing about using a pattern is you don't really have to think about it at all. It's really easy to just sit down and pick up a project and go and feel a lot more relaxed about knitting. I know with a lot of the projects that I am making that are just kind of my own design out of my head, I'm constantly kind of questioning myself. You know, did I make this big enough? Is it too big? Did I add too many stitches in this? Is it too long? Is the neckline the right shape? Like, I'm constantly questioning every technical detail of it. So being able to work off of a pattern is so relaxing because you just follow directions. So the pattern starts out with the back panel. It's all in Fisherman's Rib, and I've got the back panel done already, and I really, really like it. If you want to look at it a little bit more up close here, I think the tweed pops really nicely. I love the texture of this Fisherman's Rib. I had actually never done the Fisherman's Rib stitch before, so I'm enjoying it a lot. If you've been watching my videos, I just finished my big brioche sweater knit project, my Kermit sweater, and this is like brioche knit for beginners. So if you'd like to do brioche knit, but you're like, man, it's just a lot. This is like getting the same look with half the amount of brioche knitting rows, essentially. It's just a lot less complicated. So I am enjoying it quite a bit. I like how, you know, every other row, since I'm knitting it flat, is one I can kind of not pay attention to, because I really like to read and knit, but when you have brioche knit or cable knitting or color work, you can't really do any sort of reading. But because every other row is a knit row, I can kind of just, you know, go on autopilot and read like a page or so, knit my Fisherman's Rib row, and go ahead and read some more after that. So I've been really liking it. I'm working on the first panel currently for the front of the cardigan, so it's coming along as well. Yeah, it's been a good time. I think this is skein number 3 that I'm on, so we'll see how much I use. In the pattern, I believe, let's see, I'm doing a size medium, and I think you need about 550 yards for the size medium, and I have a little bit over that. I was gonna do the size large, but this yarn got a little bit bigger gauge than what she was recommending, so I figured doing the size medium amount of stitches would kind of end up being perfect, because I don't want this to really be oversized. If you saw from the picture, it doesn't have a lot of positive ease, and it's kind of a cropped cardigan, so I don't want it to be oversized really, so I think that this will work out really nicely. So that is where I'm at with that, and I'm really enjoying it so far. The next project I've been working on wasn't really an impulse, but I didn't want to talk about it just in case, because it's a gift for my husband, and he did actually watch the last video, so I was like, I'm glad I didn't talk about it. He just doesn't always watch the knitting podcast, and I didn't want to be like, hey, don't watch that, because I think he would have known what I was doing. But his birthday was this past week, and I was working on a pair of socks for him. This is something that I was pretty sure he was gonna like, because when I was making them for my grandparents, he was like, I was actually using him to try them on, and I was like, does this fit okay? And, you know, does this feel okay? Just getting like a second opinion kind of, and he was like, these are really nice. So I was like, maybe he would like a pair. So I've been working on a pair for him. I know these look really similar to my grandpa's socks, but I had a second skein of this red, and so I knew that that was a possibility. And if you look at my yarn, I've got a lot of pink, and I don't think my husband would really like that. Most of the other sock yarn that I have is like pink and purple, or stuff I have planned projects for, so I didn't want to use. So I pulled out this red, which is actually his favorite color, so it doesn't matter. And then I'm using the same colors in the toe and heel actually, but I didn't think I'd have enough because it's just a 20-gram mini skein that I'm holding double. And so I didn't think I'd have enough to do that again. So I am holding both of them with just one strand of gray, because my husband's kind of more into the muted tones. And then I flip-flop the colors, because actually when I was making my grandpa's, I was like, what color should I make the heel and toe? And he said green heel, blue toe. And I was like, oh, but it would look more Christmassy if you could see like your little green toes. So I did it the opposite. So I'm doing his how he originally suggested. Now I'm not done with these. This is the first sock that I have gotten done. The second one though, I'm about like that far into. So yes, they are late for his birthday. I kind of did it on purpose, kind of not. I did it on purpose partially because I really did want him to try them on, because I could measure socks that he has, but he's worn those forever and I don't really know which ones fit him well and which ones are totally stretched out. And so I did kind of want him to try it on when I was on the foot portion of it, to see like, how long would you like this to be and how does it feel? Also, I kind of underestimated how long it would take me, because I was basing off of, okay, well, it only took me a couple weeks to knit my grandparents' socks. Like, a couple weeks per pair probably. But I wasn't taking into consideration the fact that I only worked on these for about like a half an hour between the time that I get home from work and he gets home from work. So I also just logistically could not get it done in time. But I'll probably have these done, I'll for sure have these done for the next video, but this is pretty much what they're gonna look like, just ×2. And for these, just like the other ones, I'm using the same pattern, the Patons socks. I do think it's really interesting that all the socks are only sized for like women, but like it's just a sock. I don't know, it's all like in women's shoe sizes, but I don't really understand what the significant difference would be, and I don't know why they don't have like comparative sizes. I don't know. My husband put this on and he loves how it fits, so whatever. I definitely made it a little bit longer than I think even their largest size, because it only goes up to like size 10 in women's, which is limiting for a number of reasons, but that's fine because we're making it work. The last current project that I have to talk about is probably my most impulsive of all of these. So, like some of us, I hope there's people like me out here, it's really fun sometimes to buy yarn and then just like look at it and be like, I'll work on this, but then never really get around to working on it. And I've had a yarn in my stash for a while now, like a long while, that I've just been looking at and I love it and I have plans for it and I just had not picked it up. And I've been talking about a lot this year how I do not want to buy yarn. I kind of got into a habit of buying too much yarn, as you can probably tell from the background. And so I've really been trying to focus on just using what I have. But, and this is going to kind of lead into the next portion, I bought some yarn. My maybe favorite dyer, one of, Ruby and Roses, Addie in Indiana, released a collection. Actually just yesterday, as of my filming of this. It's probably going to be about a week ago once I post this, but she released a Taylor Swift collection that she's been showing like one skein of for the last almost 2 weeks, and I'll always say this, I think she's literally like a color genius. I don't understand how they always look so good, how the proportions and mixtures of color always look amazing. I don't think I've ever seen a skein that she's dyed that I'm like, that was a mess. They just always look so good. You know, even some of my other favorite dyers, like there's a skein every once in a while that I'm like, I don't love that. Addie never misses. I don't get it. I don't get it. She's just so talented. And so she's releasing this collection. It's about Taylor Swift, which I like Taylor Swift. I don't really consider myself a Swiftie just because like I don't really listen to that much of her music, but I enjoy it. Like, it's fine. Well, she was releasing an entire collection themed around Taylor Swift, and it's just gorgeous. You can go on her Instagram page and look at it. I don't know if it'll still be open by the time this video posts because it's based on pre-orders, and she was kind of limiting it based on like what they were going to be able to do in I think 6 to 8 weeks. So it may be closed, but she said the longest it would be open is about 2 weeks, so it might still be open. But if you go to her Instagram page, Ruby and Roses, you can see the entire collection. And there was 2 that I just couldn't live without. Now, the reasons I bought these. First of all, it was not an impulse buy, which is something that I'm kind of bad at doing because there's been a lot of yarn that exists in my stash that I'm like, this is on sale, so I'm just gonna get it. Even if it's not something I need or even love that much, I'm just like, this is a good deal, which is really easy to do. And so I was like, okay, it's not an impulse buy because the 2 yarns that I did end up buying, she had posted for over a week, and I had been thinking about for over a week and thinking what I could do with it and what I would make with it. And even the night that the sale went live, I put it in my shopping cart and thought about it for like 3 more hours just because I was like, am I ready to spend the money and actually order some yarn? So I did end up ordering some yarn, but the last thing, my like last ditch effort to say, you know, I'm gonna make totally certain that I really, really want this yarn was to use some that was already in my stash. So I bought this yarn. I know that was a long lead up here, but I bought this yarn. Sorry if the camera just moved positions. I had to stop recording because I ran out of space. I forgot about that fun little recently deleted folder that you also have to clear out. So, sorry, I'm not exactly sure where I left off, but the yarn that I started this project with, it's called A Princess Tale, and it's gorgeous. I bought it forever ago. I don't even know, at least a couple years ago. I started out just getting one skein, and then within the next year or so, she mentioned that she had like some sale items, and I went and looked at them, and one of them was this, and she was saying like it's gonna be discontinued, like I'm not dyeing it anymore. And so I bought enough to make a sweater out of, and I have not touched it since. And so I decided, because this is a variegated yarn, it definitely is a lot different than what she's dyeing now. Like I'm sure there's so many reasons why this is a different type of dyeing style than what I just bought, but I thought, you know, I don't work with variegated yarn a lot, and that's what I was wanting to buy from her collection, was variegated yarn. So I was thinking, you know, if I work with this and see how much I like this, that'll be a good indicator that not only is this not an impulse buy and it's something that I have plans for, but it's also something that I am fairly certain I will actually like. So I just skeined up and knitted a swatch of this, and I fell in love. I love it. I love it so much. So that was kind of like the final nail in the coffin. I was like, I'm buying this yarn. So it is a pre-order. I'm not going to be getting it for a while, so I will just show you when I get it. It'll be a fun little surprise to see which ones I picked, because she had 13 gorgeous colorways, so it was very difficult to figure out what I wanted. But while I was knitting up this swatch, I thought this would be a great sweater. So I cast it onto a sweater, and I'll show you how far I've gotten. Well, this is the skeined up yarn itself. Oh, I just can't get over how pretty it is. It has got so many different shades of pink and blue and purple, and then that green in there just adds such a pretty little splash, and I'm loving it. So I love my bottom up sweater, so I'm on the bottom. I've just been working on the ribbing. You can tell I haven't got incredibly far, but it's a fingering weight yarn, and I'm using a size 2 needle. So it's gonna take me a hot minute, but I really, really love it. I just think it's so pretty. I feel like it makes me think of like a mermaid, you know, like the blue and like the water and bright mermaid colors. I don't know. I love it though. So that's my newest project. I will say, while I was skeining, I have 4 skeins of this. While I was like spinning it into cakes or winding it into cakes, I had a horrible discovery. Moth damage. Like a chill ran over me, because I don't know if this is a worse idea or better, but I store most of my wool yarn all together, and then that's where I pack like most of my lavender in to like deter moths. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, what if all my yarn is ruined? Like, mental breakdown immediately. First of all, what I think happened, it was only one of the 4 skeins that I kept finding breaks in the yarn and little portions that were like, this yarn base is 4 strands wound together, and there was a lot of portions that like only 1 or 2 were left, like it was fraying apart. Fairly certain that's moth damage. What I think happened is that one skein, because I found no other breaks in any of the other skeins, I certainly don't think it was Addie and Ruby and Roses. I think it's fantastic quality. I think that was probably the original skein that I first bought very long ago, when I was certainly not storing my yarn well, because I didn't really know that like moths were a threat, and so I didn't have any sort of lavender or any deterrents to moths. So then I went on like a terror-stricken rampage looking through my yarn, and I was looking at like anything that I think would be from like the same time period that I would have bought back then. I ended up putting, I think, 8 or 9 other skeins just in my freezer, because I was like, just in case. Like there's a number of them, because I bought this yarn I bought with kind of a fuchsia color, purpley fuchsia from Ruby and Roses at the same time. I ended up putting all that in the freezer with it just in case, because I probably have stored it together ever since I bought it together. I had a couple other skeins that I had bought a long time ago. One of them I did actually find a little spot that looked like maybe it was chewed, and so anything that looks suspicious, I just put in the freezer just to be safe. I store all my yarn with lavender now, so I'm fairly certain it's not going to be an issue. I didn't see any signs of moths still existing in my stash, and that is the only skein I've ever found that I'm like working with that had any sort of damage. So I think it's okay. I really think I could even tell you when it happened because it's been long enough ago. It's just kind of uneducated about it. I bought a skein of yarn from a shop here in town that used to sell kind of like yarn, not seconds. I think I've talked about it before, but they got stuff from like larger stores. Like they had a lot of Hobby Lobby brand yarn and a few different like kind of just one-off random skeins, but they had a lot that were nice quality. And I got a skein of Cascade yarns, and I remember when I was there, I saw a moth like in the yarn. I just didn't know what it was at the time. I was just like, oh, there's a bug in this. Like I thought it was just like a regular moth. Like I didn't know that it was eating yarn. Just me being uneducated about the topic, and I brought it home and just put it in my stash. And I had that yarn, like I bought it a long time ago, so I'm gonna say it was probably from that, but I'm hoping that the issue has not spread to anything. In fact, I went and like panic bought another bag of lavender blooms off of Amazon to put into my stash because I just feel like I need to take extra precautions now. So that was a little terrifying, but overall, I'm very excited and I just love this. I think it's so, so pretty, and it's really different than most of the other sweaters that I've made. I don't have a lot of blue. I'm a very like pinky purple, red, warm tone kind of girl. So blue, there is obviously pink and purple in it still, but blue is very different for me. So I'm very excited about it. And it's just gorgeous. I love it. So that was kind of my impulse project of the day. But whatever, I'm in that cycle of I'm gonna start a million projects just because like I'm excited about them and I'm feeling like starting projects, and then in probably like 2 months I'll be like, man, I haven't finished a project in forever because I have like 6 different sweaters I'm working on, and I'll just try and finish them all. That is it for current projects that I've been working on. If you've watched my other videos, you know I've got some other work in progress that just kind of sit on the back burner most of the time. I've been trying to actually take them with me places because a lot of times when I'm just like hanging out at people's houses and things, I like to just sit and like mindlessly knit. And a lot of the projects that I need to just like get finished are ones that are just mindless knits, especially that big blanket. I've been taking that with me actually, and it's, you know, incredibly wide. So I'll usually do like 2 rows when I'm at someone's house for like 2 hours. So I'm not going to show it because it looks like I've made absolutely no progress, but I have worked on that one a little bit. So I already talked about what was my big acquisition from Ruby and Roses, and I've got to be honest and say that's not my only acquisition. I'm not justifying this. I'm not justifying my yarn buying. I kind of am, but I did buy a little couple of other things. But they were more practical. The first thing was from a dyer that I've bought yarn off of before. It is called Handful of Yarn. I can show you the label here. I really like her yarn. Her fingering weight base is a 2-ply fingering weight base, and I just love how much texture that adds to a product or a project, because it just looks a lot different. It has a lot more definition in the strands, and I just think that that adds a really interesting look. And I think maybe all I've ever purchased from her are mini sets, because she has like some really nice combinations of minis, and I noticed a few weeks ago that she had a sale, and I thought, you know what, I've used a ton of those minis. Those are what I have been using for the heel and toe on my grandpa's socks, and then also on my husband's socks. The gray that I mixed into it's actually out of what I bought recently, so I use them a lot. I've got 3 or 4 of them that I'm putting in my candy stripe sweater right now. I've used them on like cuffs of different products or projects that I've been working on, so I do use them a lot. I don't really need more, but I find myself looking through my solid color minis a lot because it's just something that's so easy to mix and match and pair with so many different things. Like I said, she was having a sale on them, so I was especially like, this feels like a good time. And so I got, it's 3 different sets and each of them total 100 grams. I have taken, like I said, one mini out that was a gray that I paired with my husband's sock. So this is an acquisition. I don't really feel bad about it though, because I was kind of being incredibly practical about it because I know this is stuff that I use a lot. But this first one is kind of more fall tones, and I'm a sucker for fall tones. I love them. They're so rich. And then the other 2 are a little more kind of bright pinky purpley. I think this is the one I took the gray out of, so it is missing one, but it's got some really fun colors in there. And this one's kind of more of like jewel tones, which I really love. So I consider this a practical yarn acquisition, so like it basically doesn't even count, right? So that is one thing that I bought. And then the other thing was probably kind of impulsive. I don't know. I saw it though and I was like, I'm gonna use this because like I just am. It was so me. I was at Hobby Lobby with one of my friends and she was getting some drawing supplies and I was like, I'm gonna go look at the yarn because I'm the fiber artist. I'm not a drawer. I'm a knitter. And Hobby Lobby has some pretty decent like hand-dyed yarn options that are actually like wool. And so they got me. I got some. They have this one, it's called Unicorn Horn. How could I resist that? And it's this beautiful speckly, it's not focusing, there we go, speckly like multicolored skein, and they had 2 of them, so I got these 2. I just love them. I think they are so pretty, and honestly, I feel like it's a little practical because there are so many yarns in my collection I could pair with this so easily, and I think it would be such a pretty addition. So it's not totally impractical. Yeah. I would like to say, and I thought about legitimately making a list because maybe it would just make me feel better about myself. I don't know. I can't tell you how many times I have been tempted to buy yarn this year and haven't. So there's been a lot of self-control you're just not seeing. A couple specific examples of which, 2 of my favorite dyers, Super Glow Fibers and Paisley Knits, both had a pre-order collection. It was like a rewind collection of some of their best-selling colorways, and let me tell you, the absolute self-control I had to have. I loved it. There were so many pretty ones I really wanted to purchase, but I was like, no, I don't need them. I don't have plans for them. This is impulsive. I have yarns that kind of look like those already. I just don't need it. And so I didn't purchase anything from either of those collections. And Treehouse Knits had a giant collection drop. I didn't even get on my phone because I didn't want to look at it. And they sold out in like 45 minutes, so it doesn't matter. But I didn't buy anything from that one. And Lavender Fiber Co. has a pre-order coming up, and I'm not going to be purchasing anything from that. So there are so many times I haven't bought yarn. You're just not seeing any of those. That's all my acquisitions. The last thing I want to talk about is some of my future plans. I don't have a lot because I've got a lot of current projects started. The only thing that I can think of currently that I've just been kind of had on the back of my mind, I'm probably not going to cast on for a little bit because I have a similar project that I want to finish that's like this one, but I want to make a summer tank top. Now, I have a cotton yarn that I've been working on making a little kind of t-shirt out of for a long time. I talked about it in my very first podcast episode. I haven't touched it in forever because it's cold enough out that I don't even really care about making a t-shirt. So I'm gonna finish that before I start anything else. All I have is literally like the actual short sleeves, which will take no time at all. The other project that I would like to make that's similar to that I think I still have some time before I would really need to cast on to be able to wear it this summer is a little tank top. I've been really inspired by, and I'll put a couple pictures up here, these types of tank tops that like tie on the sides. I just think they're so cute and just look like such a comfortable, lightweight thing to wear in the summer. And so I want to kind of make my own version of it that maybe looks a little bit sportier. I would like to make almost like a high neck racer back, sort of, top out of this. I have this yarn already. It's 100% cotton. It's the same type of yarn that I'm using for the t-shirt that I've talked about in the past. It's just a different color. It is this really fun, bright greeny yellow. I have 2 skeins of this. I know that doesn't sound like a ton, but it's just a tank top. And also, these are fingering weight, so they're like 400 and some yard. Yeah, they're actually closer to 500. They're 472 yards. So I know that's gonna be plenty. Honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if I just used one of these. So that's one thing that I've kind of had on the back of my mind, especially after in my last video that I posted, I did some like I-cord knitting and I never realized how flipping easy I-cord is. And so I thought, you know, some I-cord ties and straps would be super cute. And I'd like to make it racer back so that I could layer like a sports bra underneath. So, you know, like it's still, that's why I want to go kind of sporty direction so that I can still just wear like a regular bra underneath it, but also have it kind of be like a stylish accent with the top. So that's something that is kind of in the back of my mind, but I would like to get, I just dropped my yarn. I would like to get some of the mini projects that I have started finished up because I have a lot of cold weather things that I would like to at least get a couple wears in before it's really warm. It's February and it's currently about 60 degrees outside, and that is super abnormal for the area I live in, which is the Midwest. So we'll see how much cold weather we have left. The only other thing that I have kind of in the back of my mind that I'd like to get started on is with the other incoming yarn that I have. I bought from Woolen Works Barbie collection in November of last year, and it was also a pre-order, and I know that she is in the middle of dyeing it, so I'm very excited to get that. I will be pairing, I bought Surrey alpaca weight of her just like hot Barbie pink color to pair with, I don't know if you can see in the background, it's like at the very corner right there, it's Ruby and Rose's Material Girl fingering weight. So I'm gonna hold those together because I think that they're both like fluorescent pink and I think they'll look really good. And even if they're different shades of pink, I think that might even look better. But I'm planning possibly another kind of cable knit motif with that because I think that would be really fun. But that's really the only other project that I have kind of on the back of my mind here. But again, I know that yarn is going to be a little bit still because I know she's still dyeing it and it's coming from Australia. So it'll be a little while until it gets here, which is fine because I have so much to work on right now. So that is where I'm going to kind of wrap it up for today. I think I've shared just about everything that has been going on in my knitting journey so far. But hopefully this video kind of gives you some inspiration for your own. And I know it is so easy to kind of be on yourself about like, I need to finish projects before I start new. And I'm here to say, start as many as you want because you know what? It feels really good. And you get the fun part of like starting a whole bunch of projects. And in a couple months when you get tired of having so many, you get to get like the dopamine of finishing all of them within like a month. So do it. Be like me. But thanks so much for watching and being here, and I hope to see you on the next episode.